This is the Animal Agenda. I'm Tom Kiesche, filling in for Melody King. Our guest this week is Katie Brennan, the Canine Recruitment Outreach Manager of Search Dog Foundation. Today, we'll be discussing what the heck is a Canine Recruitment Outreach Manager, what do they do, and all things search and rescue dogs. Before we start, let me disclose that while I volunteer for several organizations, I am speaking and asking questions as an individual in my own individual capacity. Let me also disclose that I've recommended a few shelter dogs to SDF over the years. I've made a few mistakes with some of the tests. A few of the dogs I recommended went into the program, and once I got the very unique opportunity to tour the campus and attend a scouting recruitment seminar. Hello, Katie.
Hi, Tom.
From the website, searchdogfoundation.org, let me read the following. Founded in 1996, the National Disaster Search Dog Foundation, SDF, is a 501c3 nonprofit, non-governmental organization based in Santa Paula, California. Our mission is to strengthen disaster response in America by recruiting and rescuing dogs and partnering them with firefighters and other first responders to find people buried alive in wreckage of disasters. So truly, we are talking about life and death, superhero, first responder kind of stuff here. Okay, Katie, where are you from? How'd you get into the position you're in, working with dogs? How long have you been doing it? And what the heck is a Canine Recruitment Outreach Manager? So basically, tell us about you.
All right, sounds good. So I'm actually from the Philadelphia area, which is where I currently reside, oddly enough. And I got started in the search dog world as a canine trainer for the Penn Vet Working Dog Center out in Center City, Philadelphia, as part of University of Pennsylvania. While I was there, I learned all things dog detection training. It was a fabulous experience. I left that position to do behavior modification training, basically full-time with aggression, reactivity, all that good stuff in the client dogs that I got to see and help. And at that point in time, I actually, oddly enough, landed a role as an animal control officer outside of Philadelphia in a suburb. That was an amazing experience. And when I saw the job posting for a canine trainer through SDF, who I had seen posted through a mutual friend, I kind of jumped at the chance and headed over to California for a little bit. At that point in time, I had to come back home for some family obligations. And luckily, SDF kept me on as a canine recruiter at the time. So I was scouting shelters in the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, the whole nine, looking for potentials for the program. And the position luckily just kind of grew. We realized how amazing, especially in light of COVID, social media could be in really helping to find these candidates and really promote more of what we're about from the recruitment side, not just sharing our dog stories, but also utilizing Facebook, Instagram, the whole nine to really get the word out. We know that these dogs are out there in shelters and rescues, and it's really just a numbers game and kind of keeping eyes out for these guys to hopefully give them a job that they're going to love at the end of the day. So that's kind of my spiel. As a canine recruitment outreach manager, it's my job to start those relationships with shelters and rescues, inform them about what we're looking for, field any questions they have about the screening process, which we can do fully remote, by the way, which is fabulous. We can reach dogs in all corners of the country, including Hawaii, Alaska, and even into Canada and Mexico. So we're very, very lucky to be able to use technology to our advantage in this way. And at the end of the day, I get to review videos day in and day out of these amazing dogs in shelter rescues that are looking for potentially a job and hopefully a job with us.
Okay, that was a lot and excellent.
Sure was.
It was. And as you were talking, I was like, well, I was going to ask her that. I was going to ask her that. I was going to ask her that. And also just reflecting on some of the conversations we've had about some of the dogs that I've mentioned in the past. So let's go to SDF. I was so impressed with the team and the dogs that I saw when I was up there in the campus. And without getting too deep in the weeds, let's just start at the beginning. What is SDF? How is it funded? And what sort of staff is involved with SDF?
Yeah. So SDF was started by our founder, Wilma Melville. She responded to the Oklahoma City bombings and with her search dog, and she was a school teacher at the time, and she saw that there was a need. There was a shortage of these dogs. There weren't enough of them that were able to respond. It meant very, very long hours for her and her canine partner, and their other team members. Basically, it just kind of dawned on her, we need more dogs in the nation to respond to man-made and natural disasters. So it started with her. It started with Sundowner Kennels in California. Klaus was the main trainer at the time, Davenport. Fabulous, fabulous trainer. And kind of between the two of them, they got things up and running. The introduction of shelter dogs happened not too soon after the organization was founded, but they had to start somewhere. So they did work with a lot of field trial dogs and other dogs that might not work for other types of roles, but might love disaster search. And then it sort of grew into, let's try and help these dogs looking for homes that really are only looking because they're just too much. They have these amazing natural talents, such as their high innate toy drive, their hunting abilities, force ed toys, and their overall wonderful temperaments, and obviously no medical concerns. And it just kind of grew from there. We've been doing this for 28 years, and the program's only getting bigger and bigger. We are fortunate to be completely donor funded. So we have obviously a lot of amazing donors that believe in our mission and want to help support us and these dogs. And of course, help support the FEMA teams who receive these dogs at the end of the day. So what it comes down to is, like I said, great volunteers as well, great mission, great donors, and then we're able to build our staff. So we have over 30 staff members, full-time trainers, our philanthropy, our communications teams, recruitment side. We kind of have it all going on here. So the campus, as you saw, Tom, was very busy at all times. We also help support teams that might not get dogs from us, but want to utilize our campus, utilize our training props and our training facility to grow their strength as team members with their canine partners. So basically, just as much as we can help throughout the country to get canines and their handlers ready to respond to disasters, we're here. We've also actually hosted international teams as well.
Again, excellent and thorough. So much. So I want to talk about the facilities, and I want to talk more about your team in that when you say volunteers, you're not just saying volunteers at the facility. You're also referring to volunteers like myself who are out there at the shelters or at rescues who are keeping an eye for the right candidates, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a huge village to find and screen these dogs. And yes, 1,000%, including our wonderful volunteers and recruitment partners who are out, in the thick of it, keeping their eyes open for these dogs.
This is the Animal Agenda. I'm Tom Kiesche, filling in for Melody King. My guest this week is Katie Brennan from the Search Dog Foundation. Today, we're discussing search dogs, how they're trained, how they're found, and how you can identify one yourself. Let us talk about the facility and why I said me, because I was so impressed that it may be second nature to you, but as a person that's never seen it before and seeing it for the first time, first off, it feels like it's in the middle of nowhere, which is amazing. And then you get to this campus that sort of feels like dog college in a way. We met on a big, beautiful, I think it was AstroTurf field with a emblem on the grass, like you were going into like a sports stadium for dogs.
Yep.
Then we walked to the dormitory for the people who were in training with their dogs, which felt sort of like a combination of beautiful upscale Pepperdine type dormitory for people versus firehouse with like community kitchens and bunk beds and just top-notch feeling. Then we went on a walk through the memorials, the statue of Wilma, you said, right? That was her name?
Yep.
And the memorial wall, and heard some of the stories. And if we have time at the end, and I don't know if we will, but I would love to hear more stories about some of the people and some of the successes. But amazing reverence for the work that the people and the dogs do. It was just very touching. And then we went to probably the most interesting for humans was the like junkyard of
Yeah.
trucks and buses and plane parts and wings and things through all different kind of like weird nightmare kind of visions of like disasters. Like you feel like you're in a disaster movie from the 70s. And then we were able to walk into houses that were deliberately built to feel disorienting, that are off kilter and off their foundation. And, you know, where it's a mess and there's on purpose trash and things to distract animals and people so that a dog can train for those kind of circumstances and not be thrown off in the field. And then we got to the fields where we saw a dog do an exercise, and I forget the dog's name, but I did put it on Instagram, where we watched for 3 minutes a dog search for a ball that was thrown. And that's when I realized what the difference between a dog who loves playing ball and it's good at playing ball, and that most people think that would be a good search and rescue dog, is compared to what an actual good search and rescue dog is. And that is, it's not what the dog does when he has a ball. It's what the dog does when you take the ball away. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, these are the dogs that it's not just I like to play and yeah, I'll chase that and maybe pick it up and maybe bring it to you. It's I need this. I literally need this. It is like a visceral, intense reaction. And the cool thing about it is, you know, you see these dogs and you can just tell, you can feel it. It's pretty rad. And the other really cool thing about it is these are the dogs that they're going to drive someone nuts. You know, we've had multiple reports from, you know, an owner surrender to a shelter, and one in particular that just cracked me up. They were like, this dog will bring us, we're trying to work from home, it's COVID, and she just keeps bringing us objects, a stapler, a shoe, a pillow, like objects. They're like, we cannot rid our house of objects. You know, we're trying to work here. And that and the high energy and the whole nine made her a really good potential candidate for us. And we get those stories all the time, you know, and it's pretty cool to see them in person doing it naturally.
Well, I think that's what's amazing about partnering with shelters, because I feel like I get it now. Lots of dogs end up in shelters because they are quote unquote crazy or quote unquote destructive or impulsive or out of control or always wanting to play or too much or hyper. And they end up in shelters because they're misunderstood, but they're actually incredible superheroes that just need a job. And you guys or ladies or people are able to focus them down and give them the job through training, which I hope to talk about later if we don't run out of time. But it's and we'll get into what makes or what is a good candidate. But you guys take a year to train, from what I remember, and then a year to bond with the handler. So it's a 2-year process turnaround to literally make superheroes. I mean, you literally are making superheroes. So the piece of the most amazing piece at the facility is, like, most people just walk by it if it was out in the wilderness, but you have a rubble pile that when you look at it, you're like, it's a bunch of concrete, it's nothing, but it's massive when you actually see people start walking on it and climbing on it and hiding in it and dogs running to find them. And that was the most impressive thing. Like, this was designed here. Like, this didn't exist here. Someone designed this massive rubble pile that could be any building anywhere. And to watch trainer, or I'm not sure if it's a trainer that hides, but to watch the person that hides, and then to watch the dog find that person is really fascinating. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that before we backtrack into who are potential candidates and things like that. So the process of the rubble pile, which was also fascinating to watch. Explain that possibly.
Yeah, Absolutely. So exactly like you said, it is purposeful. Every bit of that rubble pile, we actually have another one that was kind of past the collapsed freeway prop that you were sort of referencing earlier. They are built with hides in mind, safe hides in mind, making sure our quote unquote victims, whether they're trainers, we kind of start with trainers, and then we go to some volunteers who have had training in becoming victims, and then obviously task force members, et cetera, who have also had experience. We want to make sure that not only is the victim, quote unquote, victim safe in there, but we also sort of want to understand what the potential odor picture is for the dog. So that way, while they're being worked, the trainers can maybe understand a little bit, obviously, temperature, wind at the moment, all of that stuff comes into play as well. But kind of get an idea of, okay, this hide is a easier hide for a dog. So one of our newer dogs into the rubble training, this might be an appropriate one for them, or this one is a more challenging hide. The odor picture that should be created is a little harder. So it is beyond purposeful. It's really, really cool. And our rubble pile there has dozens of hides. It doesn't look like it, but they're there. And then the other rubble pile has even more. So it's pretty amazing.
I just have to stop for a brief second and just highlight that term, odor picture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've been around now search dogs for a while and had these conversations with you, and I've never heard odor picture. So just in case it goes over someone's head, can we break that down just a little bit? What is an odor picture?
Absolutely. So our dogs are trained to find live human odor. That's what we train for specifically. Now, the odor picture presented basically means what that human odor is doing, whether it is kind of drifting upwards, whether it is drifting upwards and then gusts of wind might be pushing it sideways, whichever side. Rain, cold temperatures will all make a difference in what the odor would potentially do. A really cool exercise we do with our handlers that are in training with us is we'll set up smoke. We'll literally set up like a lighting of a match, lighting of a candle, and they'll basically get to see, obviously one that burns with a lot of smoke, and they'll get to see, wow, in this wind, when I put this in this hide or in this whatever, look at where the smoke is going. And it's kind of a cool thing, us as humans, as we're watching, might start to pick up on. It's like imaginary smoke in your mind, and you're saying, wow, as the wind travels south, you can see the smoke coming up over this rock and drifting whatever, south, whatever. So another thing we want to look for and think about at all times with our search dogs, and our handlers know this very, very well because we prep them very, very well for it, is what will contribute to a specific odor picture and how that might impact their handling of their dogs. Of course, we think of odor, downwind. Ideally, we'd love to start downwind, wouldn't we? Because that has a higher chance of the dog picking up on the odor and being able to work it to its source, which is what we train our dogs to do. They might not get all the way to the victim, of course, rubble, a lot of layers potentially, but they are going to get as close as they possibly can, which is pretty cool. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
This is all so fascinating because every single time I either visit or communicate, I learn something brand new. And all right, I want to ask about this. This, I think, is the key of the whole thing. And it's the simplest to explain, and it's also the hardest to explain. So that makes it a challenge. And if you can do it in a tight little ball, that'd be amazing.
Sure.
How do you take a dog that is, let's say, toy driven or ball crazy, and teach them to find a person?
Yeah, let's go. All right, let's get into it. So, of course, the gist of it is our dogs they are just a lot of dogs. They are friendly, they are nice, no medical concerns, no severe behavioral concerns. But what they have that sets them apart from other dogs with similar characteristics is that extreme toy drive. So what we like to do is in our screenings, we do a toy hunt. We want to see that if the toy goes missing from view, the dog knows to naturally turn their nose on to find it that way. And that is exactly what we screen for. So these dogs already come to us with this understanding of a hunt game and finding something. We utilize that to our advantage 20-fold, right? So we take their desire to possess the ball or toy, desire to be with it, desire to hunt, and we roll it into one little package. The first step is teaching our dogs what we call drive work and alert work. We actually teach them the opposite of what many people want, which is barking for the toy. We teach them to get frustrated and let it out with a bark. Multiple barks are preferred. Then we give them said toy. We then take that, hand it to another person. They tease that dog up and they run into what we call bark barrels. They're giant blue barrels with a lid on the front. So our trainer will go into that barrel and hide. The dog sees all this. They know what's happening. They know where the trainer is. Don't have to use their nose quite yet. They dive in and we want those barks. We want to start the barks. We want them frustrated. From there, once they get this idea of, okay, find the person, bark at them, I get my toy. Then we take it to, they don't see where the person ends up. Now we have multiple barrels. They have to start using that nose. We take that another step further. We add blank barrels with toys. So they're not just looking for a toy. They're looking for the human odor that also happens to have a toy reward. So you see, it literally is just this compounding process, starting with the dog showing us they're crazy. We want to see the crazy, and utilizing those natural talents of wanting to possess, wanting to tug, wanting to be with the toy, and then also that hunting ability that we slowly transform from just hunting for toy to hunting for human odor. And then we add all the distractions imaginable. Then we put them on the rubble and kind of see what they give us on that as well.
You're listening to The Animal Agenda on KPFK. I'm Tom Kiesche, and I'm speaking with Katie Brennan from Search Dog Foundation. We're discussing bow, wow, wow, sniff, sniff. Hey, I found it. Search dogs and what they do and how they're found. So basically, the elevator pitch would be that you use a toy-driven dog, and over time switch the fact of the reward of the finding the toy to getting the toy to finding the person and getting the toy.
Correct. And they always get their toy. In a deployment, you better believe that handler has a toy on them, that dog's favorite toy. And we switch it slowly from the victim, quote unquote victim, popping the toy out for the dog to tug. We slowly train the dog to go for a toy that is thrown kind of from behind, if you can imagine that, at say the lid. Say someone's holding a lid, they're in a concrete pipe. They're holding that lid back there, the victim, they don't have a toy any longer for this dog. And their handler, they have to practice their throws. It's very fun. I'm terrible throw, so I always had a good time with that. I laughed at myself a lot. And the dog gets used to this remote reward. They still, though, maintain the forward-facing barking at the quote-unquote victim, at the closest source of odor that they can get to the live human. We make sure that they train that, they go through all that stuff, and magically their toy just appears. It's like, wow, it dropped from the sky. So it's pretty fun.
So we're getting towards the end, and I knew we could have talked about this for another 2 shows, and maybe we'll have you back. But I said something about mistakes, and these are the mistakes I made, is that when I met dogs that were crazy at the shelter and I didn't know about the program, I tried to correct them from jumping on things. I tried to correct them from being quote unquote crazy or barking or not being so ball crazy. And now when I see a potential candidate, I don't try to correct them, and I call you guys or I write you guys. Matter of fact, now I just email you, or I take videos of the dogs and send you the videos. So we're getting down to the end here, and I definitely want to have you back to talk about training and things like that. But before we go, I feel like we need to talk about who are the perfect candidates, what types of dogs, breeds, sizes, ages. That's the heartbreak for me. But tell me about who you're looking for.
Absolutely. So kind of historically, there are 5 main breeds that have been used for this kind of work due to their just genetic predispositions. And those are going to be your Labrador Retrievers, your Golden Retrievers, your Border Collies, Australian Shepherds, and German Shepherds. We will accept mixes thereof. So if there's a mix or even a dog that doesn't quite meet those breed characteristics, but you're like, they work, they seem to tick all the boxes, I say never hesitate to reach out. In terms of ages, We look for that 1 to 2 year mark. You mentioned earlier, Tom, about the 2-year process,
Yeah.
which, it's a thing and something we really need to be sensitive about. So once they kind of reach that 2-year-old mark, we sort of have to think about it a little bit harder. And of course, in terms of dogs that who do not have a known age, so they come in as a stray, we kind of take the veterinarian's best guess. So whatever appears on veterinary paperwork as their birthday, we sort of roll with that. If there's a dog that's a bit younger than that year mark, so like 9 to 10 months, something like that. But they took all the boxes. That's also something that we can probably accommodate, no problem as well. And yeah, so like I said, mixes are fine. And I always tell people, when in doubt, go to our website, fill out that refer a dog form, and we'll just kind of see what happens.
And let me hit real hard on the age thing again, because that's the heartbreaker for me. And I've said that to many people. It's not that you don't think an older dog would have been a great candidate. It's that the program is so long and costs so much money, and there's such an investment that they really need to be under 2. So get these dogs identified ASAP so they can get into the program and become superheroes.
Yes. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And, you mentioned the behavior of some of the dogs. You're like trying to get them to not do those things, because most people would not want that. But that's why the early identification is so, so important, because if they possess those natural abilities, we want to let them shine and show what they can do.
We didn't even get into training, so I really want to have you back. And because I think that's fascinating, and how people can contact you and things like that. But for now, they can go to searchdogfoundation.org. I'm ssure they can find your information there, correct?
Yeah, we actually, if you go to searchdogfoundation.org, you'll see at the top bar, there's literally a thing, and it says refer a dog. So
Perfect.
Click on that, fill out the application. We get back to you very quickly.
And again,
we're always trying to make sure these guys get to where they need to be.
I feel like we need to start wrapping up. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
This is Tom Kiesche, and you've been listening to the Animal Agenda right here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, or streaming online. My guest has been Katie Brennan, the Canine Recruitment Outreach Manager of Search Dog Foundation. Special thanks to producer Marlena Bond. Please support listener-sponsored KPFK by donating online at kpfk.org. Hey, stay tuned for the Lawyers Guild with Jim Lafferty coming up next.